And good evening and welcome to another edition of Life is People. Tonight we're going to be talking to, well, I guess all the way from Toronto, Canada, but I know she's got some connections with this part of the world. So before we go any further, how you doing tonight, Smudgie?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm really good. Well, I think the first sort of place we have to sort of start with is, where did you get the nickname? What's the history behind that?
There is a bit of history, actually. That's a good question, and a lot of people ask because Smudgie is a weird name. It's my nickname, but it's my nickname since birth. And my real name's Antonia, but I never really liked it. And so my mom was a poet and a writer, and she thought, so brace yourself, she thought the stuff that makes a baby, sperm and egg mixed together, is like a smudge of life. So I literally am a smudge of life, which I kind of like. It's like life energy. And so that name stuck all the way to now. So that's where Smudgie came from.
Well, that's unusual. It's not often you get your nicknames from your mum.
That's true. That's true. And it is a little unusual, especially in my previous life, like my world of economics. I usually stuck with my real name. So for music, though, people remember it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It is a very memorable name, and I mean, obviously, that kind of leads into the next sort of question that I think really I had to ask you is, and you mentioned this on your bio on your own page.
Yeah.
It's something about you, basic. So the question I'm going to ask you is, what happened the night of the rainy party? what happened to make you write a song? And supplement to that question is, do you remember what song you wrote, and do you still have it? Okay, well, tell us more then.
Yeah. Thanks for these are great questions. Thanks, Tim. So here I was in London, in Russell Square, in the heart of central London, UK. I was working on my PhD in economics, and supposed to be writing my thesis, and then out of the blue, it was a dark and rainy night, and I was in my flat, and there was noise upstairs or something. I just tried to move to another part of the room. And I picked up a pen and paper, and I thought, well, I just felt like writing some lyrics, and I'd never written a song formally in my life. I've written sort of lines here and there, but nothing put together. So I started writing a love song out of the blue. And it wasn't anything that I'd experienced, but it was something I saw somebody else, and that sort of someone else's life inspired these thoughts. And so instead of working on my economics, I kind of went this guilty pleasure of like, oh, wow, this is really fun. So I kept writing it. And then I finished it, and it was just lyrics. And I thought, wow, maybe I should send it to my brother, who's a music producer back in Canada. And I thought, he'll probably laugh. So I sent it to him. And, then when I came back to Canada, he said, you know what? I said, it sucks, right? And he said, no, it's actually, I think we can do something with this. So the song was unintentionally, and bottom line is my brother added music, and it became the first single on my first studio album. So yeah, that's what kicked off everything. So it was something about London and the London music scene, because when you're out of your normal space, you sometimes get really inspired in another country or another kind of headspace. So I think that's, I don't know, it's something about London. I mean, I love it there.
Okay, what did you find inspiring about London?
There's so much music, there's so much activity, there's so many options, and museums are free, which I think is very civilized. And it's just there was a lot of I felt there was an open-mindedness to exploring new types of don't get in smaller cities, and maybe bias, but it seemed like there's certainly a larger selection of different kinds of music, and we kind of went everywhere, and I definitely went out and tried to explore new things. So more than in Toronto, which is comparatively a small town. I mean, Toronto's a big city, it's the biggest in Canada, but London is really a world-class city.
So had you kind of played any instruments, through your childhood, or was that, I mean, was it something you just sort of like that night just sort of thought, okay? I mean, how much does your sort of musical history go back?
Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was about 8 years old in Winnipeg. It's in the center of Canada. It's very cold and flat. And so I kept going with my guitar till about 16 years old. And then I stopped. So, and then I went school, economics forever. I was going to be a professor. And then I got inspired to go back to music. So I don't have a lot of music training, formal training. But I do have guitar. So, I mean, I don't think I'm the greatest guitar player, but I love writing. So basically it's guitar, and then vocals I've been working on for a few years. with I've had some amazing vocal coaches over the years. So those two things are kind of my main instruments. So yeah.
So, in the process of writing a song, will you sit down with, literally just with a guitar, or do you ever sort of like go into the piano or keyboard or any other instruments? Or was it just mainly you'll just sit there and start strumming some chords and start it that way?
Yeah, basically most of the time I sit down with the guitar and start, but lately I've been switching a bit more to piano and composing on piano as opposed to just starting guitar. Because as a lot of people, people who write songs, it again, it helps to change it up to kind of get into a different headspace to grow as an artist, a songwriter. So yeah, so bottom line is basically guitar mostly, but sometimes it's a cappella, so no instrument, I'm just humming something, or sometimes it's a lyric that inspires me. And yeah, in terms of content too, I can get inspired from the littlest things, the most shallow, things, to really, really deep subjects. So yeah, so that's basically that kind of process.
When you're in the actual the creative process of writing a song, I mean, how would you approach it? I say this because I'll show you what how I've always written a song. I've always tended to my element of creative process on that is
Yeah.
I'll write a lyric first, and I'll have maybe some words that I'll jumble together, and then the last thing I really do is then I'll go back and put the music over. And I'm like you.
Ah,
I've got
yeah.
proficient knowledge of music, so I'll tend to construct the lyrics first and then put the music around it. Or if I don't do the music myself, like when we were in a band, I used to write all the lyrics and then take it to the band and they would write. So
Right.
is that the same sort of process for you, or will you start with a melody and then you'll fit lyrics over, or how does that sort of that element work for you?
Yeah, that's interesting how you start with lyrics. I tend to start with music. I don't know why. I need at least a beat to hang my words on afterwards. So yeah, I rarely start with lyrics, but again, it's good to try to do that. But typically, I do. I start with guitar or piano, and then it really helps. Drums. I mean, drums can are a huge part of a song too, and to kind of keep the energy, depending on the type of song. But yeah, so music first, and then usually then adding lyrics. And I've been collaborating more and more with different amazing people that I've been meeting from around the world, thanks to there's an organization called Taxi based in the U.S., and it's basically an A&R. They get music from people who compose and write songs, and they take that music, and if it meets the criteria, they send it out to film and TV and commercials and stuff like that, video games. And I've been part of that group, and that has allowed me to collaborate with people from around the world. And so I've been trying to mix up my method a little bit more because I'm exploring these new options. Yeah. So I feel very, very blessed to be able to have met all these people too.
So just generally, I mean, and again, I'll sort of give you my sort of experience.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to, as I was saying to you earlier on today, I've spoken to a lot of sort of creative musical people in this podcast, and I'm always fascinated with this question. Is that for me, I tend to have, and it's not a particular set pattern or anything like that, but if you're going to generalize, I would tend to say myself, I tend to get very creative either early hours in the morning, so between maybe sort of like 11 at night to sort of like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then sometimes I can get straight when I wake up as well. That's why I always leave a book by the side of my bed so I can wake up and just jot down any thoughts or images and stuff like that. And it seems to be quite a common pattern that a lot of creative people have this from all areas. It's science, authors, writers, musicians. They tend to have the same sort of like almost the same pattern of creativity. It hits them early hours in the morning. So I have to ask you, did you have any particular times of the day when you generally feel that you're more creative? Or
Yeah, I'm like you actually. You hit the nail on the head. We're the same too. Yeah, I'm like early in the morning or really, really late at night. And yeah, it's funny how that works. It's kind of extreme times. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's maybe especially as I'm about to fall asleep, that seems to be, the time where all these, especially lyric ideas, come to me. Yeah, and it's always good to have a tape recorder or something with you all the time, because it is, the muse is random. I mean, it strikes when it feels like striking. Sometimes it's totally random.
Well, yeah, that's one of the benefits of I suppose the age that we live in. I mean, you just mentioned it there, tape recording. You sounded quite you sounded quite an old person. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
but I suppose the thing I'm trying to we've all got our smartphones now, so we can
Yeah.
record these inspirations at any moment. And I think I kind of meditated on this for quite a while about what it is around this creative process, and I think obviously it's related a lot to do with this really bizarre state that we all as humans go into for this, maybe 8 hours of our life, and we just enter this trippy dream zone, and we enter this whole different universe that we now have no control over. We don't really remember when we wake up because we have little flashes of it. But for 8 hours a day, we're all going through this. I almost equate it, and I use the word very precisely. I'm not throwing this word around, lightly. I think all human beings almost go into a psychedelic state.
I think you're right. Actually, I like that. Yeah. Sorry. No, keep going. Yeah.
And I think that's where, if you're creative, and I don't think, I've always sort of stated that I don't think that certain people are born to be creative and other people aren't. I think it's like anything. I think it's a skill that can be utilized by anybody. I don't think anybody can't do it. But I think it's around those 8 hours, because I think the people that tend to be creative are the ones that maybe a bit more open-minded to things, and I think secondly maybe don't have other external distractions, so they're not getting up first thing in the morning and having to sort of sit there in a computer booth. But I think if you can open your mind up to those, I think there's a definite relationship between creativity and the sleep process. That's why I personally think it's either when you just come out of it or you're just about to enter it, because your brain's on a it understands, it's on a pattern every day, and it understands, okay, now I'm going to go to sleep, and maybe that's, like you say, it starts to shut down, and all that inner creativity, those thoughts come through. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, that's just my theory.
No, I think there have been scientific studies showing that there's certain I mean, I'm no expert at, but there are certain patterns that you go into a certain kind of your brain shifts gears basically, and it's a certain kind of, I forgot what it's called, alpha or beta or something. But there's a certain shift in your brain as you drift into sleep, and it's triggered by hormones that are released in the body because that's what gets you to sleep. And those are linked to creativity. I think, so there are, it makes sense. And when you say psychedelic state, it's funny how, that is, it does the kind of dreamy state and the creativity, they're really linked, because I feel that it's kind of I feel like I'm high, when you're on a roll and you feel you're creative, you feel that kind of high, and in a natural way. Your brain is kind of free of distractions, and you're really living in the moment. And those are actually one of my most I often say this to people when they ask, especially other creative people, and I think everyone's creative, but especially artists who are actively artists. I feel very much at peace when I'm actually in the moment of creating, or live playing. That's a different animal, but in terms of creating and coming up with ideas. So I do agree with you. I think sleep and that dream process, it's part of the brain shift that you kind of go into. I don't know if I'm making sense or just rambling right now, but anyway, I agree with you.
No, I think you're tapping into an area that's, I think you're absolutely correct in, because I mean, again, and I speak only as an artist. I don't speak as a scientist by any stretch of imagination. But like you said, there are certain chemicals inside us. I mean, that's why I think they're very closely related. I mean, the tribes in around the world and stuff like that. I mean, I've mentioned to you earlier on today that I lived in South America, and it's amazing how much they can get into that state just through trance or dance, and I think it's kicking off the same chemicals, whether it's DMT, whatever it is, that you go into the psychedelic state. And I think that's why it's back in if you look through history, that's why the people that have always been either pushed to the edge of society have been called witches or stuff like that, or they were called the visionaries, are the people that have, like I say, they've dealt around this foggy area of sleep, like consciousness, unconsciousness, and played around with that. And I think it's a fascinating thing, and I'm sure that the more technology happens and the more advancement we make as a human species, we're going to find out exactly what that is.
I agree.
But right now we're almost like just poking around in the dark, and we know roughly what works and what doesn't work. And that's what I'm saying. And I think it's very interesting that most creative people I talk to, and I think 90% of them, it's exactly the same answer. Yep, late at night, early morning. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
obviously quite a common process we're all going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that again, I think you're right. We're poking around the edges of, and we can go off on a tangent of, which is really interesting to me, about what is consciousness and all that, and kind of, but which always fascinates me, how basically how the mind works, and what is creativity. I mean, there's many forms of creativity. I mean, I think, very logical people can be very creative too. So that's a different skill. And I also agree with your point about, a lot of people say, "Oh, you have talent, you're talented," or other people are talented, and I think that talent can be honed. I think that everyone can be creative in different ways. Yeah, if they have a chance to work at it. Not everybody has that chance. I'm lucky. I'm really grateful. I can actually do music full time, and I've just only recently started doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think it's one of the things that frustrates me a lot about the way that generally the education system all round, particularly in the Western world, is operating at the moment. Because I mean, I'm a perfect example, and I can speak completely of myself. I mean, I've always had an urge to sort of be creative with my hands and be, like drawing and painting and stuff like that. And like I say, I'd had that inspiration myself, and I kind of was inspired by music facts. I used to copy album covers and stuff. But I remember at school, this being completely just smacked out of me completely. It was like, you have to paint this way, you have to do it this way, and it's amazing. All you need is one bad teacher or one bad experience in that, and it will put you off for the rest of your life.
I know. I hate that. Yeah, that really is one of the things that my big pet peeves is bad. I think we touched on this last night, or early this morning. Yeah, it's like one bad teacher or one good teacher can really take you in a different direction. And yeah, I remember wanting to dance early on in my life, and this professional ballet dancer we were at some famous author's house, and anyway, she said, "Oh, you're too tall to be a dancer," and that just turned me off dance. It just stopped me from continuing. So yeah, you're right, Tim. I think you need to be nurtured, and it's too bad about your painting being, because art it depends what you're doing. It depends on your goals too. Like some people just want to be artists, and don't want, they're not necessarily interested in commercial success, and so they should not be, should be free to do whatever they want. And some people want to go the commercial route, or at least do that some of the time. And so you kind of have to be aware of the norms in that world if that's your goal, and I kind of straddle both. So I like commercial stuff too, but I also like just doing whatever I feel like doing. And it's too bad they should never do that with kids.
No, I mean, I think it's like I said before, I mean, it seems to be sort of quite a common one that I come across quite a lot when talking to creative people, that just their education experience will just, like I said, you just need one bad experience, which I think, and I sort of like just to touch on this generally. I mean, my personal opinion is, I think that 20, 30 years is something that me and Ryan talk about a lot in this podcast, that, maybe in 30 years time, they're going to look back, the generation then, and they're going to look back at us and think we're quite barbaric because we're the way we do things. And I think one of the advancements that will definitely happen, I truly hope, and I really do think, but I think just the general advancement of us as a human species is going to lead to this point where basically education of children will be seen as, let the children almost guide what they want to do. I mean, there's a great project down in LA at the moment, and I don't know how much you're aware of it, but they're basically allowing their children to basically, whatever, they get a group of children together.
Yeah.
And they say to them this is at 6 years old, which is why I'm like, wow, this is the future, how I think it's going to be. So they get a group of children, maybe 10, 15 children together as a parent, you put them into the school, and they get them together, maybe 10, 15 of them, and they sit them down and they say to them, right, what solutions to the things around you don't you like? So generally they may go, oh, I don't like the fact that the world's going to be, over polluted, or the fact that we're all going to die from X, Y, and Z. So what they do with these kids is they say to them, okay, that's the problem you want, and then for the next 10 years they're going to say, right, we're going to give you every tool available to go out and find those solutions, so they can let them build on it, and then wherever they may go, so they can just, basically let the kids have free reign, because because it's the answer they want the solution to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really innovative way of educating people, because it gives the kids free reign to allow them to let themselves explore, and then you've got a group of people who obviously adults with more knowledge who can give them as much guidance as possible. And I think it's a really good way of and I think the future way of education, because I think one of the things that we all find in school, where whatever subjects you are, and I imagine it's true in your part of the world as it is over here, is that kids, we're all boxed. You mean one of the things you mentioned earlier on when we were talking last night was the idea, it relates to one of your songs, which we can talk about. It's the idea about being boxed. And you think we're all just kids, particularly. That's all education's become, is just a set of lists and boxes you tick, and they shape kids through. I mean, I remember when I was at school, for instance, I remember being pushed into biology and chemistry, and I never wanted to do it. But it helped the school to get their passes, and that's not right. And that's what I'm trying to say. I think we're all kind of open minds, and I think that the best way we're going to advance this world is when we basically keep the open mindedness as much as possible. I think that's that's my rant over. Gordon.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm bang on with that, because like I think one of the problems, at least some people have, is when they become adults, they lose the imagination, or certainly it diminishes. They lose their ability to even realize that life is full of infinite possibilities, and your mindset can change your life, right? And I think if you become too passive by being boxed in early on, it kind of trains you. Oh, you got to listen to authority. And sometimes, authority is necessary in certain cases. But you want to have that mindset where you're not in a box, you're not in a mental cubicle, and you kind of we've got to teach kids that. And I think you're right. The example you mentioned in America about giving kids free reign with guidance, obviously from adults, is the right way to go. And I think you're right. It's going to probably continue that way, and hopefully that will catch on. Because because otherwise you stop being able to make decisions, and that's why we get these, my theory is, or other people have said this too, is that if you get adults who are so concerned about what's not having initiative, or not having drive, or not knowing what they want in life, it's because probably they've been trained all their life that they have to obey someone, that someone has to tell them what to do, instead of kind of thinking, well, I can do anything I want. If I want to be a songwriter, then just pick up a pen and paper or a computer and start writing, and then you do what you become what you do. And that kind of initiative or way of thinking gets you out of the box. But I think that there are certain powers that be, and then we're getting to politics now, but is that they don't want you to think independently. And I think that's very, very sad and quite scary for if that were to continue societally. Anyway, I'm getting way off, but regarding the song you mentioned, and then came you we have a video for that one that I think you kindly posted. That was the song where I was working in a cubicle, and it sounds like a love song, but really it's a song about freedom and not wanting to be trapped and be in a cubicle. And that it's just time. That's where I decided I couldn't be in a 9-to-5 office job, and I had to, just life is short. Too much shit happened around me. Excuse me, hope I can swear. And I'd seen too much tragedy and personally, and been through some stuff, and it was time to just be an artist and just grab the bull by the horns and just do this thing. And just like a few months ago, I decided to go full time. So Tim. So I think we think similarly.
So going back to you talking about that song there, and we mentioned when we started this conversation, you kind of you wrote your first song after that, and the rainy night in London. I mean, how long was it between after you writing that song that where you got to the point where you just mentioned then, where you kind of thought, right, okay, I'm going to really sort of pursue this? How long was the gap between the two?
Oh, that's you ask great questions. Actually, it's funny. I was working with my brother immediately, so he's again the music producer, And I remember him very recently saying something like, well, you know, when you first came to me, you know, but I think it was 2006 or 7, with that first song, we did it. And he said, you know, I thought that would be it. You know, I honestly thought you would stop and that would be it. And I thought my, you know, I bounced it, sent it to some friends and I got really, really positive feedback on it. And I was surprised because I thought, oh my God, I think my friends are going to think I'm crazy. What are you doing writing songs? But people liked it. People were very, very supportive. So the next song came probably about 3 months later. And then soon enough, I had an album thanks to my brother. We work really well together. And I had 10 songs, or I can't remember. Yeah, 10 songs on my first studio album. And so I just kept going. So here we are, like many years later. I'm now working on my second studio album. I'm thinking of touring. I'm going to probably be in Nashville in the fall, because it's such a songwriting hub. So yeah, basically it kept going. There was a few years in between where I had some personal stuff that went on that was just, I had to stop everything basically. But now I'm back in. So yeah, it just kind of kept on rolling. So you know, I just, and then now I've got a film interest too. It's sort of not as intense as music, but I really enjoy making the film kind of world too.
So how long in this along this process of you just sort of like talking about then, how long was it before you first got up on stage and did the hardest thing I think any kind of person like me and you can do. I remember
Yeah.
I'm quite happy. I was quite happy writing songs, like I said, and playing around and rehearsing with my friends. But the first time we had to get on stage, that's a whole
Yeah.
different world. I mean, I don't know whether you're the same as me, but
Yeah.
I just found it the most daunting thing in the world because I tend to like. I personally like to create and then give it away and be quite anonymous. But so to go up on stage and you know that everybody's glaring at you and the lights on you. I mean, how long was that process between? I mean, did
Um, Yeah, that took me a while too. I totally, again, I think we're pretty similar. That took me a while because it is daunting, as you know, and it's something playing live. It really, you're right. It's a whole other ball of wax. You can be, and it took me so long to learn this and appreciate this, but there's so many great mentors I have, like Jason Bloom. He's great. Anyway, many others I've kind of listened to and learned from. But it's playing live is a total. You can be a great live musician and not a songwriter. You can be a great songwriter and not a live musician, and you can be both. And I have much more sort of, I feel much more comfortable on the songwriting front and less comfortable on the live front because I don't have as much that much live experience, but it's growing. But yeah, so it took me. It's, I'd say not like maybe 2.5 years ago. I really went on for my first gig. I played with my brother in this really dingy pool hall up in Aurora. It's an hour north of here where my brother's studio is. The stage was like 1 inch higher than the floor, so it was not a stage. And I was so nervous, Tim, that I went right before my palms were sweaty. I went into the bathroom, women's bathroom, with my guitar, was tuning there and my hands were shaking. I was tuning and my G string broke. I mean, that everyone might laugh because it sounds like a G string, but I mean my guitar string for the G broke, and I couldn't get the new string on fast enough. Anyway, finally got it on, got on stage. Oh, actually, just before I got on stage, my friend said, "Hey, you look like you should have a beer." So I downed like a giant beer, and I get drunk really, really fast. So I got up on stage and I couldn't remember half my lyrics, and I was doing originals. So no one cared. And you know what? We started playing, and it was terrible. It was terrible. No one was paying attention. The people were playing pool, and people were talking. But you know what? You have to go through that. You have to learn from your first gig and get better, hopefully, and get feedback from people who are going to be honest with you. So so what I knew it was terrible. I knew I had to get on stage again. So what I did was I was part of this creative writing, like writing, not music stuff, but I was writing a book. And so I was part of this book group. And down the street was a place called the Free Times Cafe, and it's well known in Toronto, in the heart of Toronto. And every Monday night there's an open mic, and I thought, well, there's a chance to go hone my skills, live skills. And so I kept playing there. So by the end of a year, every Monday night or so, or as many as I could do, I got really comfortable on stage. And after that, I actually was honored to be part of the best of the open mic for Toronto. So you know what I mean? Like you just, it's like anything. You just got to practice.
Yeah, I think I think that's very wise words, and I think that can almost be a name on a t-shirt, because I think that's exactly the advice I think every person who steps into the world of creativity, needs to remember. It is just a case of putting your head down and just plowing away, and you are going to make mistakes, and
Yeah.
it's what you do with those mistakes. Do you let it crumble at you, or do you go,
Yeah.
okay? And I think one of the things that's hard, and I remember this myself, when when you do put you, like you said, when you've gone through all the torment of like whether this, whatever creative arts it is, where you're doing, like you say, get on a stage as a musician, or you're an artist and you're putting your stuff out in the world for the first time, whether it be a gallery or online and stuff like that, you are feeling, like you said, you go through all the fear and all that.
Yeah.
And even if you do come through it and you do have a bad experience, obviously it can, because you've gone through so much torment to put it out, it's very easy to sort of like say, oh, I didn't get a positive response, and you hide back in your shell, and
Yeah.
that's a very common process. But I
Yeah.
think the advice, like you said, that I've tried to give to as many people as when they talk about this, is to say, look, learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
You're not going to do things correctly the first time.
Yeah.
Life is a process of always improvement, and
Yeah.
and how you improve is learning from the mistakes, and it can go the other way around. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, especially in open mic sessions. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the flip side to this. When you get someone on stage, they think they're brilliant, they
Yeah.
walk off, they're actually no good, but they've got so much delusion, they keep going on and on and on, and you see
Yeah.
them maybe 3 years later, and they're still doing the same material, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, you haven't really learned, because the creative process is, like you said, is like you exactly said, it's just one of just keep going and
Yeah.
going and going, and eventually you'll realize yourself, you look back and go, oh wow, look how much I've come down the journey. Look how much I've learned. Look how
Yeah.
much my guitar playing's improved, my vocals improved, my
Yeah.
lyrics improved. That, and I think it's really important to get that message across to as many creative people as possible, because
I agree.
we can be the worst self-critics, and we can
Yeah.
be the worst, people to put ourselves back in the shell. So I think
Yeah.
they need to, as many creative people you can hear it from, I think the better, really, because it's obviously a common process we all go through.
Absolutely. Exactly. And I definitely have those moments of like, you question what, this, like I write a song, it doesn't sound that great. And then sometimes you come back to it a few days later and it's not as bad as you thought. Yeah, you can't. And then for live performance, you're right. You get good and bad feedback, and you want to keep learning. You want to keep positive. And also I try in general, and this goes beyond music. I try in general not to take the good like the positive compliments, the nice stuff too seriously, and not to take the negative too seriously. Like learn as much as you can from the feedback, especially feedback from people who are not your friends, who have nothing to gain from telling you what the comment is. And just try and go and don't take yourself too seriously. I think that's another thing, is like some of the best artists I know, they are humble people. And I also think, and this is a whole other debate, that there's no ultimate source, like definition of what's good art for all people, for all time, for all humanity. I think you can, some people like mint chip ice cream, others don't, and that's like music. So all in all, you gotta, it's somewhat subjective, and you just try and learn to, and I guess when I go out there, and this is on the live front, and I'm still, believe me, I have so much to learn about live. It's crazy. And I just got another great tip from more experienced players than me. Again, is just to keep positive, give it your all. And I guess my number one goal is, when I'm performing, I want to make sure I give more energy to the people listening to than when they came in. I want them to feel something, to be moved by something. And I've like 10, I'm crazy. I've like probably 100 lifetimes worth of songs in me that I feel like I'm running out of time. I have so much energy and so much, like I have so much inspiration. I've like, I don't know. It's just crazy. I'm just like ready to just keep writing more and more stuff. So I'm excited. So
I think you're very, again, this is, I think, again, something that a lot of creative people go through. We tend to get I personally, I personally think this is what happens. I think once you start to open yourself to this whole process,
Yeah.
that more things happen. It's like a flood, and before you know
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
before you know it, you're like,
Totally.
you've got so many different projects going on
Oh
at the
my God,
same
it's
time,
insane.
but I think you're absolutely right, because I think if you're going to get boil it right down to the very bottom, the essence of what this is all about, as I said to you earlier on, we are just on a rock, and we're here
Yeah.
for a short
Yeah.
period of time.
Yeah.
And I think this is exactly it. I think we have to enjoy as much as we can when we're here, and
Yeah.
do as much as we can when we're here, because we've only got this one shot. And I
Yeah.
think this is. I think one of the things that I personally find, and I don't know if it's the same in the work, the circles you move in Toronto and stuff like that. And what drives me a lot is there is a lot of creative people who, like I said, they can almost go into them shells, and as they say, they become very insular, and we know where that goes down to. As I said to you, one of the things that I, particularly when I came across your music, was it really kind of was not only inspiring, but it really hit a chord with me. Was
Oh,
through some of your songs, and again, I maybe just subjectively reading it and seeing my own sort of stuff, but you tapped into that whole point about how life isn't just you know taking it seriously what really puts life into focus was when you, like you say, when you lose somebody, or you
yeah.
realize that the fragility of life. And that's one of the things, like I said, that's what I love, particularly when I heard, I mean, the first, as you said, as you know, one of the first tunes I particularly got into yours was And Then You Came. I saw the video,
Oh, and
and
then can you? Yeah, yeah. That's the Cubicle song. That's interesting. Okay. Yes.
I just played it over
Yeah.
and over and over and again,
Oh.
and I just thought it was just you just tapped into that, and it was.
Uh.
I think it was that's what I particularly liked about your stuff. Now I got to talk to you because we, about not only what the song, that particular song, but as you know, when I first sort of reached out, we first spoken. I mean, I was absolutely blown away by the visuals that you had put on that track. Now, obviously, you told me offline and stuff like that how that all came about. So, just for sort of people out there who will go away and they'll probably go away and listen to the tune, and I recommend anyone go and do
Oh, thank you.
SoundCloud, YouTube, anywhere you can
Thank
on
you.
your own personal site. Go away, look at it, but definitely go look at the visual style for And Then You Came. Now, tell me how that all how came about, how the visual sort of style, and what your process behind that was.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Thank you so much for your kind words on that song. And I gotta thank my brother again for the audio production. I think he had 21 different synthesizers in that song alone, and not that that makes it good, but I mean we worked really hard on that, and I think production in that song is particularly strong. But yeah, it was an honor. So the video for that it's an iPhone movie, and that's I think one of the first videos. So I went up. I have some land about property about an hour north of Toronto. I'm sorry, 2 hours, and so I went up with a friend of mine, one of the people, actually a really great writer, and he was actually the same writing group I was part of before. Anyway, we went up to camp on the land that I own. It's on a river, and on the way, he said, why don't you film?" He was driving, and he said, "Why don't you just film some scenery, because it's gorgeous. It's not like as rugged as Scotland as the parts that I saw, but it was still pretty very beautiful." So I started filming with my new iPhone, and I took it home, and I like playing around with video, and so I have a little interest in that, and I edited it, put a bunch of effects on it, and lots of different, like, yeah, little effects, and basically made that thing. I probably edited it for like 20 hours or something, and you know almost for free. I had a software program that allowed me to do video editing, and it didn't cost me very much. I used not one of the professional programs, but you can do a lot with non-professional video programs. And yeah, so I just put that little video together, and people seem to really respond to that. And actually, that song, and I don't know if it's anything to do with the video. It was probably the audio, but it got played across America's medium and large stadiums to pump up fans for 3 months in 2013. So it's been across America, that song. So so anyway, that's how the video came to be made, and that song's about the cubicle again. So, but
Well,
thanks, yeah.
I can definitely completely understand why that song was used, like you say, to sort of, and it spread like what you just said, which is fascinating. It kind of got into that whole market and
Yeah.
but I can definitely understand it, because it's definitely, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, because it sounds really cheesy, like you getting, really sort of like cheap CD in the
Yeah.
Tesco's, but it is very, very anthem kind of tune. It's a very kind of, it stirs you, because that's what I'm saying. I was. Like I say, I came across you really kind of just by accident. Really, I was just flicking through SoundCloud and I came across some of your stuff, and
Really? I didn't know that. Okay, that's
yeah,
interesting.
that was exactly how I came across you. I was just flicking through SoundCloud and I came across, some of your stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, that's, and I like particularly like the style of music, because it was a particular kind of music I like, and and I was trying to listen to it, and I played it, and I sat down with my partner, and we played it again, and we were sort of like discussing it, and we were like trying to work out what it sounded like, and there was so many. You could almost, I don't know, particularly I could sort of spend, as I have done, a long time working out. Okay, there's a bit of this and a bit of that, and that's what I liked about it. You were very open with what you could tell all the things that you'd listen to, and all, and you kind of put them all into this one, sort of like, what, 3.5 minute tune, and it was. I mean, I particularly I can see where, that's what I'm saying. I particularly can see why it became that kind of anthem, that kind of anthem sort of tune. I mean,
Thank you.
how did that come about? I mean, how did it go from being something that you obviously, like I say, you just done a little pictures? I mean, how did that sort of like break into the, like you said, to becoming played
into the anthem? Yeah, thank you again for your sweet. That's so sweet to hear that. I mean, it's just, it's nice to hear that it affected you positively. And on the influences, I get crazy, like stuff from, get a lot of, it sounds like Eurythmics, and then I get, Lana Del Rey or Katy Perry, other songs, or it's all over the map, or Cranberries from the 80s.
Okay, well, I was instantly, the one that came to mind with me was Killers.
Oh, you're kidding! Oh, I love the Killers. Okay, well, that's awesome.
So that's another name.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's like and Death Cab for Cutie, which I love. I don't know, I don't hear that, but I love them. Seriously love them. I love a lot of things though, from Taylor Swift to all kinds of things. But yeah, sorry, what was your question?
No, I'll say, so how did that song go from, to obviously with you writing it, playing it live? How did it get out into the, like you were mentioning, into the stadiums?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So yeah, basically I was looking for places to publish it, basically, and get it out there, or get placed out there in the world. And I was there were various libraries or publishing houses that take independent artists, or anyways, music that's been written, and they farm it out. So I ended up giving it to a library, and it got on to Pulse Records. So it was just one of the, basically a gig, an online thing that I saw, that with a specific company that basically takes independent artist music and looks for the best places for it. And one of their gigs was, do you want to get your song played across America's stadiums? And it was a sports thing. I'm not hugely into sports generally, but and I thought, well, you never know. And then a couple of months, actually maybe not even a couple of months, probably a month later, I heard that they loved the tune, and that I got the gig. And it was just really almost as simple as just applying it. It was the right, I guess it was the right sound at the right time for the right place. And it's really hard to get that. Like many of the people I know create fantastic music, and including instrumental tracks that don't necessarily fit say a film and the right scene in the right place. So I feel like I got lucky. I think we had a good product, and it clicked. It was the right product at the right. I make it sound very commercial, but you do have to have the fit for what they're looking for. So yeah, that was awesome. I also got Tony Hawk from the Ride Channel, which is big on skateboarding stuff. He chose 4 of my songs for his Ride Channel, so that was an honor, because a lot of my younger fans, like who are into skateboarding and stuff, like they're always like, wow, Tony Hawk. So yeah, so that was an awesome other gig that I got. And I've got placed in an LA web series as well. So yeah, there's been lots of opportunity. You just got to keep looking for it. And I get, there's so many rejections that I don't mention, but there's, you just got to keep trying. Same as the live thing, you just keep trying.
So on the like you mentioned about that song particularly going out and playing out in front of stadiums. Is there clips on YouTube and stuff of that actually being played in front of the crowd and stuff?
Actually, yeah, no, you know what? That is a good idea. And one of the things that I'm thinking about the band, having a bigger band, and we're talking about ideas about bands. I think I really need a good keyboard player. So if anybody's out there wanting to be a Smudgie keyboard player, that would be great. So yeah, but that would be great to do live. I haven't done an NKMU yet, but I would hope to. And actually, and you mentioned Scotland. I mean, I'm thinking of planning a tour, so maybe I'll come out there and do it live for you guys.
Well, that's perfect. I mean, the reason I sort of mentioned the one about, I sort of like focusing on the one about the crowds and playing it. That must be a very again, for me, from a sort of now back in the day when I was in the band, all we ever wanted to do, and I think this is very common amongst particularly musicians and artists and people who are in the creative sort of visually and musically stuff, where none of us are driven by greed, but all we want to do is hear our tunes or our art on a wider scale. So having, like I say, something you wrote, like it made like we've alluded to in this podcast, something maybe you wrote maybe at 2:00 in the morning,
Yeah,
played in front of maybe 30-20,000 people in front of a
yeah.
crowd. It must be, that's what I'm saying, it must give you, I'm fascinated to know what that must feel for you, because I can't imagine what it'd be like for me as a band to think, oh wow, they're all playing one of my tunes. I mean, it must be, I don't know. I mean, have you had, that's what I'm saying. I was wondering what your reaction to that must be like. If you've never seen it, I don't suppose you're going to know, are you really?
No, yeah, but you know what? You're right. That's a cool question. It was definitely wild because that you feel like you're what you've created is moving people, or is some kind of positive energy, some kind of positive force, which is really my goal in life in general. Is not try to be a positive force, hopefully. So that was really cool. Just to when we got that gig, and Pulse Records is really my contact there, she was amazing. They created a special, like a success story, and they do that for everybody who gets gigs with them, but they promoted the fact that it was being played across America for 3 months, and that's really cool. Yeah, it's not like I was there, but I actually almost wanted to see which games, what I didn't get to experience it directly, but I did have that feeling when my song and Lost My Destination, which is one of my older songs that a lot of people seem to connect with, was played on like terrestrial radio. So Real Radio played it. And when I was in the car, and that's the first time I'm like driving along, and it was Rock 95 in Barrie, which is about an hour's drive north of Toronto, played it. And anyway, the DJ there is really, really nice guy. And that I connected with. And I was like, wow, this is my song. It's a really nice feeling. I have to admit, it's a really nice feeling hearing your song on the radio. But you know what? The bottom line is, the main thing is that whether it's live or just being on your own creating a song, I just get such a high from just being alone in my room. I'm a weird person, but a lot of creative people are like this, where you just want to create. And I'm just blessed to be able to do that full time now, which is it's just been a couple of months since I had a bad knee, and that you can ask me about that if you want. We're going to talk forever. I don't know. But I had a bad knee, and that I memorized the stucco on my ceiling because I couldn't walk. And that made me reevaluate everything and decide to really, really go into music full time just a couple of months ago. So anyway.
Well, no, that's very fascinating, because it's amazing how many, again, it taps into what we were talking about earlier on. It's when you have a situation that you're either through an injury or even a near-death experience, it all makes you shake it up a bit more, and it drives you on more. I mean, it has done with me. I've had the near-death experience not many years ago, and
oh my goodness,
there's nothing like that. No, I don't see it as that, because I got through it. I'm here now talking to you.
But
it taught me two things. Was one this ride we're on is very short, and we don't know at any point and we could be taken off it. And secondly, and I know it's such a cliche and people say it all the time, but it is to live life as much as you can and do as much as you can while you're here, because it's always made me, and I'm sure it was exactly the same with you, and especially when you're in a situation when you're almost in a paralyzed situation, whether like you say, because you sit, but it makes you go, right, my drive is so much more. And when I get out of this, I'm gonna go full tilt at life, because I don't know how that was the same for you.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. And I'm glad you have the attitude of like, instead of the bitter route, you take the positive, optimistic route. Like, I got through this totally with my leg, and that's my leg or my knee thing was so annoying. It was like my own fault. I was dumb. I was doing some, exercises I shouldn't have, done that forcefully, but as my friends will probably attest, I'm an intense person. And so when I do something, or love someone, I really love them, or I do, and I was going crazy with exercise one day. So I injured my knee. So I couldn't walk around. So I'm lying like literally, I do have like little mountains on my ceiling. I can memorize the stucco, or I can sit around and think about, okay, I went through my whole budget in my, and figure out the money stuff for 6 days. I couldn't walk. And it is kind of scary, like temporarily, it's like, wow, I could die here and no one would know. But you know what? That's your brain freaking you out. And bottom line is I made something positive out of it. And then what really pushed me over the edge to say, yeah, you're right. Life is really short. It's fragile. You don't know when you're going to go. And I watched this music video, this live performance of Ed Sheeran. He's in a studio, but he's like a one-man band of energy. And that performance, I forgot the name of the song he was doing. Don't Need You or something. Excuse me, but fucking blew my mind. That I watched that probably 20 times in a row. And that was like, okay, Smudge, you got one chance. You're going to do it. You're going to do it right. Let's just go for this music dream. And you know what? That's what I'm trying. And you're right. Life is fragile. So you just got to go. You got to try. And then, and then you'll make connections, and then those other people will help you. And that's what's happening with me. I've got a family. I really believe this is a family of songwriters that are supporting me. And I'm so lucky to know, like, people like Bamtone, the song I sent you. He's like so freaking talented, so humble, so nice. And I'm learning so much from hanging out with him and so many other people like that. So yeah, you gotta seize the day. Yeah, and you got to make a living too, but there's a way to kind of try and seize more of the day. You know what I mean?
This is something we briefly touched upon last night when we were talking last night, that I think one of the differences I particularly see now between now and the 90s is like I said to you earlier on, when we were talking, that there's a definite helping people now, the bands and the creative people. There's this element of, like you just mentioned them, where people are reaching out and people are helping each other and connecting. And I think this has a lot to do with. This is why I talk about. I'm very, I say it a lot. These are the greatest days to live in, because we've got the ability to not only just connect amongst ourselves, and we've all kind of grown up in a generation where we've been able to connect on a wider level with the internet. This has made us all connect. And I think what's happening through that, instead of scenes, particularly in music or art or any of these things, instead of it just being driven by ego and stabbing each other in the back and trying to just claw your way up to the top to get that one TV slot or that one record deal. It's now because of what's happened in the world, because of the big industries, or like the record industries, and things are just changing. The whole world is going through this complete changing of how they're envisaging things and how we're shifting things. And I think through that, what's happening is the connection is an empathetic one, because it's exactly what you just said then is exactly what I'm done. I've said we've seen it through the podcast. I've seen so many talented musicians that will just go out there and connect with somebody else, and I think it's really inspiring. And I think it's part of this whole wake up moment that we're going through. And I think it is a truly wake up moment in humanity, that we're basically all connecting with each other and helping each other. Because I think it's when you strip away ego, which is where we are at now, that a lot of creative people, we're all inspired me. I said to you before, I mean, I love painting and drawing and listening to music, and I'm very inspired by it. And I'm sure it's the same with you. You're inspired by people, and it's all about just connection and stuff like that. And I think where we're at in the world right now, and I think that things are only going to get more. This is only going to accelerate more. Where instead of just being able to connect with a few people that you know personally, we're able to connect on a worldwide scale. And then this is why I say it's great days to live in, because I think many great things can happen. Because look at us now, we're connecting now. You know, I'm in the middle of Scotland, you're in the middle of Canada, and we're connecting. And I think it's like you said. I think again, you're very inspirational. What you just said. You know, and I hope people if just one creative person out there listens to it. It is the idea of, like you said, not only just keep pushing through it, but also just you will find those people, connect to them, and I think, like you said, I think most creative people, when they understand when they're doing it for the love of what they're doing and they're being real, they understand. And this is where it strips the ego away, of like, we're just doing a process, we're just creating. There's no ego involved in it. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? You won't put on this, you know, you there's nothing that separates you. You know what you like you said earlier on, where you've got to is through practice and hard work, and practice and more hard work, and more practice and more hard work. And that's how you develop. And that's the inspirational thing, because I think we live in a culture where people think the things that just, you know, magically happen. This is one of my things about the programs like the X Factor and stuff. I think they breed this culture of, well, if you can just it'll all magically happen for you in one magical moment. And it's like, no, that's not the process. The process, as you quite rightly alluded to, and I'm sure many of the people you connected to in Toronto and London or in places you met, even like you say, even someone like Tony Hawk's, it's all about the work and effort you put in, and then you will find connections. And you know, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree again with everything you said. And you're right. And once you start working at it and hone your craft, and I think the key, as mundane as it sounds, it's important working regularly as you can. Then the muse comes to you. You don't necessarily get inspired first. Sometimes you work, and you just sitting in the chair is the hard part. Getting in the chair and sitting in the chair and writing or doing whatever project you're working on, and doing that regularly. And then the muse comes and you get content created, and then that leads to connections, because that's what I found anyway on so far on my journey. And I've, like I said, it leads you to organizations and, you know, things like Facebook. We've got a couple of Facebook groups, but the entity or the organization I mentioned, Taxi, and there's other organizations too, but we've got such a family of songwriters that on Facebook, like every day there's stuff going on, and we ask questions about whether it's gear or songwriting techniques or engineering or production kind of issues. There's a family of people out there, and thanks to the magic of, you know, the technology we are surrounded with now, as you say, that wouldn't have happened like 10 years ago. And that has led to me meeting, whether it's virtually or otherwise, in person. Luckily, like for example, Bamtone's 10 minutes from me, so that's awesome. Like, so he lives nearby, you know, so we can actually meet. But other people virtually I'm working with now. I'm singing for a combination of writers from New Zealand and Ireland perspective, like New Zealand, Ireland are collaborating with me on I'm not really writing. I'm just singing on that. But there's stuff, those connections wouldn't happen without, you know, technology. And yeah, you're right. It's a magical, awesome, democratized era of music and other forms of, you know, arts that are amazing. You know, even filmmaking. I'm in a screenwriting course, and last night we were talking about making films much cheaper. Still, film is generally more expensive than making a song, but still it's more accessible, and that makes it magic, because it's like, wow, let's get our creativity out there, everybody. Let's meet and let's help each other and not have egos about this stuff, and just make great art together. And it's a blast. And you know, I'm just lucky to know so many great people and it's getting better and better. Like yesterday we had a live songwriting group with another group, some people I'm going to play with live possibly, and it looks like we're doing that. And anyway, and another production deal. So, you know, lots is going on. Anyway, I'm kind of off, but anyway, you get the point. Yeah, I agree with you. Technology is amazing. It can be used for good and bad, but for these purposes, it's awesome. You know.
Yeah, I mean what you're just saying then is exactly why I. That's why I said to you last night. That's why I stand here every, while I fly the flag for N99, because that was exactly as much as I see. Like I said before, I think we are living in the Renaissance. And when I heard about the technology that I kind of built N99 on, it was the printing press moment, and I was like, wow, this is going to change everything. Because,
Yeah.
like I say, if what we're witnessing at the moment is so much diverse creativity going on amongst the music industry and amongst because of the breakdown of these big companies. But we're seeing all this immense. I see it everywhere. I'm so inspired on a daily basis, almost a momentary basis of like, wow, look at all this unbelievable
Yeah.
creativity that's going on, but it's not reflected in the mainstream, and it's
Yeah.
not reflected, and it's because it's so. That's what I'm saying. That's why I say we live in the Renaissance, because I look around and I see so many great artists and musicians, and I
Mhm.
think, okay, well, what's missing here is at the moment that there's all this creativity, this talent going on, but nobody can get resource for it. And that
Right.
was exactly why I put N99 up, and I thought this is going to be great.
Oh,
The idea that anybody can just have the opportunity to just by switching on their computer, that they haven't got to pay for anything. So that's basically the idea of it. That you're
cool.
going to go onto a network because it's completely decentralized. By going onto it, you're feeding resources because you're giving part of your computer to the system. So that
Yeah.
the network gives you rewards for that because you're using it, and with those rewards you can go along to an artist or a musician and say, okay, I like what they're doing. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I did 99 for. So so I go to your material and go, oh great, I listen to that. I mean, instead of it like I'm being on YouTube, this is what frustrates me, Smudgy, and really this is what drives me so hard, is that I see people like yourself, and you're a very perfect example. You'll go to YouTube and you'll look at some of your videos, for example, and and they have huge amounts of views, like over 1,000 views, say. And I thought, and how much are you getting for that? Nothing. And it shouldn't
Mhm.
be that way. You should be able to be resourced and given payment for every time I look at it. And that's exactly what I saw when that was that epoch moment when I saw the technology of MadeSafe. I thought, wow. So I've now got the ability where I could just go in, I could watch your video, and I know you're going to get 99% of the resources back for it. That's all I want. Great.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some ability to build, but beyond all that, which is the first step of what it is, I think it's a very first world solution to where a lot of musicians can get resource. And I think that's great. But
Mhm.
what I think is beyond that, and to me, I think this is the very first step. Like I said, it is a printing press. Is the things that are going to happen beyond that, because if you were just alluding to it, then it's the networks that grow from it. And
Yeah.
when you were just saying then about having people in a collecting together and having a network happen, well, this is already starting to go on. But one of the things that I think, and I want to, it's my next project, is once I get it's up online and stuff like that. Were you just alluding to this? I've always had this idea. It's called Studio 99, which would be the same sort of idea where you could put people, because the technology is quicker and faster on the new network. You could have the ability. We could record. We could use each other's studio equipment and do it all online. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
Yeah.
And then for the ones you need to go into actual physical places. I mean, again, I so much. I feel like almost like I'm so excited by what's going on at the moment. But for instance, I know a female down. She was down in Southern America at the moment, and she's building, and again through cryptocurrency and through this sort of same principle and being funded by what we're doing. She's building a thing called Creature Conduit. I mean, it's going to be a place like just a physical resort where she's going to build up. It's all going to be offline. All the electricity is by solar, all this sort of stuff.
Wow.
Where it's just going to be a place where people can go down, and there will be like a studio. There will
Oh,
be an
cool.
art school,
It's
and
like a
people.
retreat for, yeah.
Exactly. And these are the things what I'm talking about. This is the renaissance I'm seeing around me, because I'm thinking, wow, we're all going to connect. And
Yeah.
if we can just basically, like I say, tap into the greater network of creativity, and then we can just release the people from that and release the shackles, we,
Yeah.
the world is going to change. Because
Yeah.
I don't despair. I don't get negative. What keeps me positive every day is I don't think, oh wow, look at there's nothing around. Everything's, as much as you turn your TV and it's all very similar and it's all very mainstream. But as you know, and I'm sure you can talk to this, and you can allude to this more,
Yeah.
there is such a massive sea of creativity out there. It's just waiting to be untapped, and I think we're just about to find solutions. I'm just one of them that are going to untap all this, and we're going to the world is going to change massively. I really do, and that's what keeps me positive, because I just see this positivity and the same mindset reflected over and over again. Whether it's you in Toronto, whether it's someone like people in Australia, America, Africa, I see it all over the place, and that's what I talk about, the wake up moment. Sorry, I've gone on too much. How do you feel about?
No,
How do you feel
no,
about what I
no.
just said?
I think that's really inspiring. Yeah, it's I agree. I think there's more and more of that untapped, those untapped connections, and I think of them like idea spores, little positive spores of ideas. Suddenly we see, oh look, you're similar to me. Let's connect, in the world of, the internet or whatever. Maybe there'll be another stage of the internet, whatever that might look like. Maybe it'll be, everywhere all around us. I don't know. But you're right. There's more and more opportunity to connect. And I think there's some synergy with that. So in other words, instead of 1+1 = 2, it's suddenly 1+1 = 3. We've got this extra, because of the more and more connections, it's like an exponent. It's, I like math. So anyway, it's more and more multiplying. And I think on the positive thing, I think we have a theme here, Tim, about shackles and imprisonment versus free ideas.
Mm.
But, which, you got to be positive. I think I'm glad to hear you say that about positivity. It's like, of course everyone gets down, and I have my moments as well, and real stuff happens, and sometimes life isn't the way you kind of planned it, but you got to expect that. And I think you got to be positive, because there's absolutely nothing to be gained about being negative. Sometimes it's easier said than done, admittedly, but you just got to face the day, and just look for the good, and try to be grateful. And just there is a lot of, at least I'm very lucky. I feel very grateful for what I have. And I agree. Like I'm just like, there's so much connection, there's so many options for connections. It's actually at the point of being overwhelming in a good way. But I've got like, I don't know, 7 collaborations on writing right now on the go. I've got two video ideas, at least 2 different filmmakers I'm working with or talking about ideas with, like all these, I've got live stuff going, starting to brew. It's because a lot of it is the internet stuff, so yeah, I think we think very similarly. And the idea of the retreat, like there's similar things that made me think of the SOCAN, which is our we have in Canada, Society of Canadian. Anyway, I should know this, what it stands for. Hopefully, no Canadian composers are listening currently. But anyway, it's our organization that collects, that represents Canadian writers and registers songs for us and stuff. And they have a retreat in Nashville, and so that's kind of like a little bit of like a place to write, basically. So anyway, and the internet is allowing all this. You're right. It's great. It's fantastic.
It is, because I think what's happening is, and I don't know. I think we're almost, as a human species, we're going through a metamorphosis moment in our human civilization, and
Yeah.
I think if what's happening is that we're all. This is what I'm saying. This is why, I find conversation like this very inspiring. Is that we're all just reflecting the same back to us each other, and we're all helping each other, and we all reflect the same idea. We're all the same like mindset. But although all the wave of creativity is completely diverse, I mean, but we're all in the same mindset. And then once more people realize that and connect that, they realize like, oh, actually, do you know what? 9/10 of humanity is like that, and then we metamorphosize, because it's a momentum that can't be stopped, because we connect, that connection becomes stronger, and we grow our momentum. And that's why I feel really positive about things, because I think, wow, what can stop us? I mean, what can stop us? Nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, all we've got to do is just connect with each other, and we can shape the world. Now, I think that's the positive
I
element.
think that's the positive side of things. And I think there are maybe entities out there that are not so positive, but I won't go there today. That's probably a topic for another, hopefully another time. But I think that I love to hear the positive, from you, that the amazing, the amazing energy that you're trying to, you've recognized, and you're tapping into that and trying to kind of not organize, but make it coalesce. And I think that's awesome of you to recognize and connect. Like, you paint, you're musical. I also have the visual thing through my film stuff, which is just a hobby, but it's something I want to get better at. And yeah, it's like, yeah, it's really really cool. And by the way, SOCAN is Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers. So yeah, I had to just add that.
I,
Um, so yeah, you're right, Tim. Yeah, it's cool.
I think the reason I'm like that is because I'm maybe just a bit older than you on that process, but I remember growing up and it was almost kind of seen as. And to be honest, this is, I'm quite happy to share this one. I remember even myself. I remember when I hit 33, and then I hit 34, thinking, "Oh, I didn't die at 33," because 33 was always seen as this glorious age that all the rock stars. You got to 33, and that was it. You had this, but I'm trying. I mean, it was almost like seen as this kind of almost, like I say, cliche, and it was almost seen as a joke. But then I remember when you actually really think about that, the whole idea that that was almost glorified, that, to be some sort of tortured musician or artist, it meant you being cut adrift, and you got to this, and I thought, no, that's not right. We've got to change it, because change the mindset. It's great those people being around. That I mean, I'm a huge Bill Hicks fan.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge Bill Hicks fan. I was I was around. I remember vividly the day Kurt Cobain died, and I thought, and it's like with all these things, you think all it was just wasted talent, and that comes from a lot of creative people, as you know, and as I know, we try to be real, and we try to, like you said earlier, like we were just saying, you try not to avoid those moments of downness, because that's part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Life isn't all just walking around every day with a big smile on your face and
No.
going,
Yeah.
"Isn't life great?" and let's all slap ourselves on the back. We're not. That's not life, because life is ups and downs.
Yeah, it's sometimes shit. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But like it's like your that's why your work is really inspiring. That's why
Oh, thanks.
I would definitely recommend people, obviously listen to this, and go and find listen to some of your music, because it is inspiring, because you can turn, as you all know, the greatest thing that we can do as creative people is to turn those moments into something real. Don't try to shine it up. Reflect it as much as you can and put it out there into the world, and then it's on to the next one, and it's always on to the next one. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I mean, I use the hashtag. You'll see it a lot of times on my Twitter feed and Facebook feed, and it's something that me, like I said before, I did some work with a band called the Ceiling Demons, and the twins in that are very inspiring, and that their whole band came together because one of their band members committed suicide, and they're only in their 20s.
Oh
And
no.
it was the idea of, like, no, we've got to slay positive, we've got to put positivity in this world, and that doesn't just mean, and that's the concept of slaying positive isn't just to being, like I said, not just, oh, isn't life great and I'm going to walk around life happy. No, it's
No.
being real, and it's reflecting that, but being positive. And the
Yeah.
positivity means just do what you do. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure when you put your music out there,
Yeah.
you don't know how it's going to affect.
No.
You're throwing seeds out there. I mean, I'm sure if I'd spoken to you, when you put out Half of Me, you wouldn't have expected that, in maybe 2-3 years, whatever time, you'd be speaking to someone in Scotland on a podcast.
Yeah.
Everything you do is just a seed, and that's why I will always, I'll do everything in my power to flag people like you up and do as
Aw,
much as I can, because we need more people, like I said, because in the world like yourself, because as I was taught when I was at university, if there was more people in this world, being creative people, to be, then there's less people that feeding the war machine, and that's why it's always a good thing.
yeah. You know what? I totally well put. Exactly. You're bang on. More creativeness, less warmishness. Yeah. If that's a word. Totally. You're so it's practical to be positive. It makes more sense to be creative and positive than to be negative. Because negative hurts you and hurts other people potentially, or at least stagnates the individual. Yeah, you just have to seize it. And yeah, you gotta, and that's the other thing you touched on too, Tim. Yeah, there's so much we could talk about. It's like, you know as an artist, you have to, that's one of the first things I had to kind of work on was, don't self-censor, get your stuff out there, especially when you're first writing. Like, do a good job, but don't, you can't be overly critical. You have to at some point let your song, your baby, which becomes your, like, your kid, go out into the world, and just be who you are. You have to kind of go, well, some people may not like what I do, but I'm not creating this for those people. I'm creating it primarily, honestly, for myself, because it's it's therapy for me. It's I have to write. If I don't write, I'm really not being fully me, and I could feel that for years, and that's why I ended up coming to music again. That I really wasn't being fully me, if that makes any sense. And I guess that's part of being an artist, a creator. And yeah, I don't have to process life through my songs. Like I like they're little packets of emotion that I that are legitimized. Like if I talk some of my lyrics to people, I think they'd think I was nuts, but you can do that in a song. Anyway, the bottom line is you do what you do it for yourself, and hopefully to help people, or give them some kind of energy in a positive way. And yeah, on a broader scale, I think adding positivity is, yeah, it's clear, it's a good thing. Yeah, because if people, I think also one last thing is, if you're being creative, it means that you're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting for life to come to you. And um and I think if everybody was creative, and you can be creative in a billion different ways. That could mean you're a great debater, that could mean you're a great painter, or you're a great thinker. There's so many ways, or you're great with electrical stuff, or whatever it is. You make the best, you build cars in amazing ways, or whatever. You don't have to be a songwriter, but I think you're putting energy into something that helps yourself, and also the rest of humanity. Or even if it's one other person, or even if it's just you, it's like, rock on, dude, because that's you're gonna look back on your life and go, wow, I did that project to the best of my ability. I did that, and that's gonna stay with you. Whether it's a souffle or whatever, that you're making. I'm a terrible cook, but that, yeah. So it's all good. Yeah.
It is, and that's exactly it. Because I think that's one of the why I think it's the phrase I use. It is it's mindfulness in a sense, because it's
Yeah.
the idea of go and go and dig a hole if necessary, but do something. Because I think that's the positive element. Where
Yeah.
negativity comes from is when you have to sit and reflect, and you don't do something. So that's why I always say do anything, and that's the point about. It's one of the things that always frustrates me, and I don't know. I mean, I'm always. I mean, I'm interested to see how you feel about this. But people always say to me, "So what do you do?" And you go, "Okay, I paint," and then they automatically think you're an artist. And it's like, no, I'm creative. At times, I can not pick up the paintbrush, and I can just spend ages playing music. At times, I can just sit and write for ages. I think we're just creativity isn't like that's what I said. It goes back to what we were saying when we were writing this podcast. To be the common thing, we're not boxed. Creativity, it's like I mean, you're a perfect example. And we were talking last night when you're primarily known. We spent a lot of this conversation talking about music, but you're scoring a film right now. You're writing a
Yeah.
screenplay. You've done creative writing. You do photography. So I'm saying it can come out in any element, but it's I think the positive thing I think is very important to tell people is that allow that to happen. So don't box yourself in. So if don't sort of feel, oh, okay, I people liked a bit of one of my tunes, so now I'm a musician, and
Right.
do anything. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
eventually on a deeper level it is essential. Because as you know, I mean, I don't I think it is worth, it is, I'm not afraid to shy away from this. If people aren't positive, this is what drives them to negativity, and that can lead to some dark places. And I don't want to live in a world where human potential is lost to suicide or lost to
Yeah.
depression. I don't want that, because it's too important. Because as
Yeah.
I said before, we're just on this planet just to do this. So I don't know how you feel about that. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
did you feel that people box you in and tend to think that you're just a musician, or don't you find that amongst the people you circle?
That's, yeah, for me, I'm a little unusual because I still feel like I'm an economist and pretending to be a musician sometimes, because I was so trained for so long in economics. And a lot of the people I'm now collaborating with, or at least some of them, have long training background in music. So I don't really, for me, feel boxed in that way. I did feel, as I said, boxed in earlier, because I think I wasn't being true to myself when I was doing. I love economics. Don't get me wrong. I still have it's a useful area, and it's cool. But I'm more of an artistic type of person fundamentally. But yeah, I agree with you, Tim. Yeah, you can't box yourself in, and I think sometimes it takes a while to figure out. Some people I know aren't sure what they want to do in life, or what their real love is. And I think you have to sometimes just pick something and think, take it for a test drive for a little while, and just work at it. I think the key is coming back to the regular working. One of the things I learned much later in life is that sometimes the muse, the artistic, stuff that comes out isn't going to strike you when you feel like it. You put yourself on in the desk at 9 a.m. and it'll come to you, but you have to start working first. Sometimes the creative, spirit ideas flow after, and often they do after I start working anyway. So it's sort of like work leads to the inspiration, not necessarily. So you don't wait for the inspiration. You start doing whatever turns your crank, whatever you like doing, in general. But even if you don't feel like it, and do that regularly, and then you will get ideas. So you gotta have that energy to do that, and then it's good. But anyway, yeah. And did you want me to talk about the song at all, Tim? Like, That's Me, or like, I don't know if you have time
I,
to play it,
I,
or
I was, yeah, definitely. And I mean, I wanted to talk to you as well, because I mean,
yeah.
kind of we were talking last night about it, and I'm kind of fascinated to know about your the screenplay you're doing, because you said you were
Oh,
scoring it and
right.
you're writing the screenplay, and I think it just taps into what I was just saying then. And again, you're not just a musician, so if that's something you would like to allude about and tell me, I would love to, to hear about more about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm scoring an independent film, made by a Canadian artist. We're not like, there's two films. He's got one made, which is fantastic. It's I won't say too much about it, but I'll just say, in case he doesn't want me to, because we're still in talks. But uh, he went to Yellowknife to do it. That's far up in the north of Canada, and film some magic scenery, that Canadian scenery. And so I'm going to be writing a song for him. He may end up using the song for a different film that he's working on. But so that's exciting. And on the screenplay front, yeah, I'm I'm my mom wrote a memoir about her early life in the Middle East, in Aleppo, Syria, which is now being bombed, civil war, and there's a lot of destruction. Excuse me. And so I went to film school a couple of summers ago at Ryerson in Toronto, and that was a blast. I met a lot of great people there, and learned a little bit about the basics of filmmaking, and kind of, I think the screenwriting part really intrigues me, and so I'm continuing learning about that. And the reason I am doing that partly is to be able to take my mom's memoir about her early life in the Middle East, as an orphan, who was known as number 86, because they didn't want to. They numbered the children. Her best friend was number 72. Anyway, they didn't want them to get. She was put with the nuns, looked after them, and it wasn't a good experience for my mom. Anyway, I'm writing about getting that into a screenplay so that can become a film, but baby steps. This is going to be a long process. So, but I'm really excited about it, and we have a great teacher who's teaching us screenwriting techniques, and got to go buy some index cards. And yeah, I'm doing a lot of things. I feel like I have, like I said, 50 lifetimes I have to get through. I have so much. I guess people have said to me over the years, you have a lot of drive, and I guess that's true. But life, as you said, like, it's so short and fragile. And I kind of briefly mentioned I went through some stuff, and I lost some people. People died that I was very close to, and people are amazing. You gotta, you just gotta nurture that and seize the moment. So yeah, so I'm doing a bunch of stuff,
And
primarily music. So
yeah, like you say, you obviously, you're in the process of writing your second album. I mean, how far down
pretty
the line?
far. Yeah, we're pretty far. I think, let me see. One, two, three. I think I can't. I'm losing track. I think we've got 8 or 9 songs. I do them piecemeal, so I do them one at a time. I record them instead of a block. But yeah, I think we just need a couple more. And I'm so. Oh, Tim, this is like the coolest thing for me right now. I'm always happy about my latest song, but my brother and I were working on a pop EDM kind of, so I'm getting more into electronic dance, and it's just got so much energy. And so yeah, this the EDM pop song. I'm really pumped about this. And I just had a release. It came out yesterday on iTunes, called "You Don't Think of Me." So I wrote that one with my brother. So that just got released, and then the new one, the working title is "Hold On," but that may change. But yeah, the EDM pop one is our next big exciting And I'm looking for another video for that, but I've already got two possible video projects, music video projects, where we're gonna have a dance, or maybe we don't know yet, but lots of stuff going on.
So like you said, you're quite open to sort of collaboration and so in the process of like making your second album, would that be something you at the moment you're just doing with just what band members that you kind of picked up along the way, or are you actually going out and asking other people to sort of mix some of your tunes and send them back to you? How's that? I mean, how's that
Uh
process?
no, it's actually just me, and me writing. Most, like, sometimes I work. It's just me and my brother, basically. So that's that really in a nutshell. It's not. I am also simultaneously now. It's just started writing with some people. I'm like that I've played. We played as a band recently, and so I'm starting collaborating with some of those awesome musicians. It's a group called Shattervox in Toronto. Amazing guys, lots of fun. So I've started as a separate thing, but that's a different project. So, but on my own stuff for this dance stuff, the second studio album is just me and my brother. So we're gonna finish that off. Probably not too long from now. I don't have a release date yet, but like I said, I'm moving more into. I'm really getting into Zed. I don't know if you guys how if he's big there, but he's like 24 and he's just super talented. He's worked with Paramore, or the girl from Paramore, and Selena Gomez, and a lot of big artists. But he's super creative. And I'm just inspired by his work right now.
Oh wow, that's so basically when you'll put that album out, will the plan be to what go out and then
Yeah,
do?
go out and tour it, and yeah, I mean, and yeah, I'm definitely thinking about a tour, and I've got a European passport, so I could live I could go to Europe without a problem, and even live there if I wanted to. But I would just, I mean, I'd probably come to Europe and America and across Canada. But that touring planning, the details I don't know yet, but I'm really excited about that idea, and there's someone I met in LA, who we immediately clicked, Joy, and she's awesome, and she's been touring. She encouraged, like, we might do a joint tour, some overlap maybe, but that's still in the air, like we're not sure about this yet.
Well,
But, you know.
I look eagerly forward to the day when you ever come over to this part of the world. And
Oh, thanks, Tim.
uh,
Great.
I mean, as you know, I've kind of I sent you some stuff on Twitter, and I think the people I sent you should definitely reach out to, connect to, because
Yeah.
there's a definitely a network of people over here that I know that they've just commented to me personally, and they like your stuff. So I think it's all about connection, because I'm sure if you came over here, there'd be a number of bands that would definitely want to be playing live with you. So
Oh, that would be
I
so exciting. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I one of the things I've at the moment I can't say anything more than it is just a dream, maybe a dream, a concept. But once if N99 becomes sort of like, well, we can get that built up and we can start really building that network up, is I've always wanted to do an N99 festival, and I've kind
Oh
of
my God, that would be
and,
amazing.
and I've already got some, because I've spoken to a big record company down in Dayton, which is we've had on the podcast, and there's a number of bands that are already up for this. It's just a case of just joining all the dots, and
Yeah.
one day it'll happen, and it's going to be great, because I think what's like I said, I mean, almost going full circle in this whole conversation, is that we are living in the Renaissance times, and what we're going to start to see, and I think more and more and more, and I see it more and more and more, and I'm sure you do, and you kind of alluded to it in this conversation, that we're all going through a wake up moment, and we're all starting to connect on bigger things, and I'm really excited about the days we live in,
Yeah.
and I think it's just, so to me, I find it inspiring, and what I love about when I see this, all the like I'm saying, when I listen to your stuff, and as you know, I've sent you pictures and stuff that
Yeah,
I
that was
actually.
awesome of you. I'm so that was the most flattering thing. Thank you so much.
No, I just think that's what I'm saying. I think it's just really inspiring, and I think it's sort of like almost part of this whole conversation we've been talking about. It, you know, I think, like I said before, music inspires art, creation
Yeah.
inspires creation. That's what keeps us positive.
Yeah.
Now, do you know what I mean? And now you
Yeah.
sent me I did ask you, sort of like offline. We've been, I wanted to sort of like particularly one song that you would like to talk about, we can eventually finish this podcast on. Now you sent me
I sent you That's Me because
I want you to sort of like
positive.
I want you, yeah, exactly. I want you to sort of like tell me, because obviously you've got a lot of tunes you could have sent me. So let's start with why particularly that tune?
Yeah, because you know what? Because it's positive. That it's just friggin' positive, and it's fun, and it's light, and it's kind of that. You know what? It was a different direction for me. So here's the scoop on. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's a great way to finish. I think. So what happened was there's something called the February album writing month. So it's a month of February. Anyone across the world, speaking of the internet and connecting people, can join online. It's free, and I think it's free. If it's not free, it's really, really cheap. And you can the goal is to write 14 songs in the month of February, which is 28 days. So a song every 2 days. And that's how I got some of the collaborations. One of the collaborations that happened to come out near the end of that month, which was, oh my God, it was killer hell. I didn't leave my apartment, my condo for like almost a month. I didn't see my friends for a month. They probably hated me. But anyway, it's coming. So yeah, I can hear it. But so bottom line is I met Bamtone through that. Well, I'd met him, but then we collaborated through, I'd met him briefly before that. And then we collaborated on this. And I just, he said, I said, Bamtone, what do you want me to send you? Send me some punk lyrics. That was what he said. I'm like, I've never written punk. There's punk I really like, but what the hell? So I had this image of this really hot chick. I don't know why. And so I like, okay, let me talk about this chick. And he's amazing. He produced it. I went over, did the vocals. He did backup. He produced it like so efficiently. And it was just a blast. So it's not my normal style, but it was so fun. And I hope to do more of this and with him too. So yeah, that's the story of That's Me.
So is that a song that you played that live?
No, I almost did, but I kind of wanted Bamtone because he sings too. You know, he's a great performer, and we just couldn't. I couldn't coordinate kind of, and so yeah, it didn't happen. But hopefully in future we'll do it together, or if not, I'll just do it. But I'm practicing. I want to do it live. It's just a blast. You need a fun song, and you know. I tend to write more serious, slower things, but I want to mix it up a bit more now.
Exactly. I mean, well, for people out there that I'm sure, and I've like I said that before, I've tried to connect you to, but where can people find where can find you? I know they can find you on Smudgie at Twitter, and there's obviously let's tell people where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So basically, the best way to find any Smudgie music or videos and stuff is smudgie.ca. So that's S for sugar, M for Mary, U, D as in dog, G as in George, IE. So smudgie.ca. That's right. And CA is for Canada, so it's not .com. So smudgie.ca. All my music links and sublinks and Facebook, everything's off that smudgie.ca website. And it's updated. There's a current Twitter feed that feeds onto it, and so the new announcements and stuff like that come all from that website. So yeah, everything's pretty much on there, including my new tune. If you want to buy it from iTunes or CD Baby, which is like an iTunes, it's up there today. So hopefully everyone can check it out. Thanks, Tim. This has been great.
And anybody listening, obviously that's in Toronto, where can they? You got any particular gigs or?
I don't have anything up right now, but what I mean, sometimes I'm at the open mic at the supermarket. But yeah, you know what? Currently, not anything. But the bottom line is, anything new will be on the website, and stuff's in the works, but there isn't anything right now that I'm doing live. But come out and go to the website and I'll have definite announcements of stuff coming up.
Well, it's been an absolute it's been an absolute insightful great conversation.
This has been great for me too, Tim. Yeah, and yesterday our talk, we didn't do the economics talk, but I don't want to. But next time, hopefully.
I was just about to say when we'll make this the first of many, because, like I said, I feel that we've hardly scratched on the surface, and so we'll make this the first of many conversations, because, like I said, there's plenty more I know we could talk about, because there's areas we didn't even delve into tonight in this conversation.
Totally true.
But honestly, thank you for your time, because like I said before, I'm very aware that our time is precious, especially about creative people, and especially in the media project. So I thought, thanks from the bottom of my heart for giving me the time tonight, just to have this conversation. It's been an absolute joy.
Oh, me too. It's been a joy. I feel like I've known you. It's so cool when you have this. We have the similar energy, I think. So yeah, I think that positivism that it's been fantastic for me. It's very interesting too.
Well, but like I say, I mean, we can make this be, the first step of a long journey, and
Sweet.
And I think, again, I kind of want to just generally sort of say that, we've taken some really huge steps forward. We're in '99, and I know right now, to people out there, this is all kind of very new concepts to people. But again, I recommend anyone go and watch episode 45 of Life is People, because you get a kind of glimpse into the new world. And my positive note I want to kind of finish this podcast on before we finish on that, to me, I just want to say that to anyone out there listening, and particularly the creative people, that there are solutions coming. And like I say, if you just go and, like I say, go and watch Life is People, or go and just see what's going on, and because there's solutions coming. And like I say, we're living in the greatest days, and I think that's the one thing that why we can all remain, and as I say before, we can all stay positive, because these are the greatest days to live in. And I'm going to finish this podcast with one of my favorite tunes by the fantastic Smudgie, and that's me with Smudgie and Bamtone, and that's me. And well, until we speak next time, well, have a great one, and life is people.
So you wanna be more than friends? I don't see what you got to offer me. You gotta know that I'm the latest trend. The camera phone is broken dreams. I'm so used to being chased by boys. You can stop by bringing me some joy. You know you're gonna have to answer pleasing if you pass. Get to talk to me. Tattoos, tattoos. Wanna rule, want to rule. High heels, sex appeal, make it squeal. That's me. So you're the guy with the funny swag. You may be cute, but you gotta prove your worth. See, I'm not just looking for another man, and you should know that I'm a special girl. I'm so used to being chased by boys. You can stop by bringing me some joy. You're gonna have to aim to please, and if you pass, you get to talk to me. Tattoos, tattoos, wanna know more to rule. I heal, sex appeal, make it squeal. That's me. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Tattoos, tattoos, wanna rule, want to rule. I heal, sex appeal, make it squeal. Tattoos, tattoos, wanna rule.